Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today we're talking global travel restrictions, specifically the ones placed on our friends from China. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the thick of it. Alright, let's kick things off with the good old US of A. The US has implemented some pretty strict rules for travelers coming in from China. We're talking negative COVID tests, visa restrictions, the whole 9 yards. The official reason? COVID-19. Now, whether these restrictions are actually effective is a whole other debate. Some people are saying it's about public health, others are saying it's about politics. But one thing's for sure, it's causing some serious headaches for travelers. Next up, we're hopping over to the land of kangaroos and shrimp on the Barbie. That's right, it's Australia. Now, Australia is known for its strict border control, so it's no surprise that they've also got some restrictions on travelers from China. They've got testing requirements, quarantine rules, the whole shebang. The reasons behind Australia's restrictions are pretty similar to the US concerns about COVID-19 and new variants. But these restrictions are having a real impact on businesses that rely on tourism. From hotels to restaurants to tour operators, everyone's feeling the pinch. It's a delicate balancing act, and only time will tell how it all plays out. From down under, we're heading north to the land of the rising sun, Japan. They haven't gone for a full-blown ban, but they've definitely got some hoops you gotta jump through. We're talking negative COVID tests, visa restrictions, the whole shebang. Now, Japan's reasons for these restrictions are, you guessed it, all about COVID-19, but there's also another factor at play here, economics. See, China is a huge market for Japanese tourism, but with these restrictions in place, those tourist dollars are drying up faster than a sushi chef's water bill. It's a classic case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Chapter 4. India Namaste, but from afar. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading to the world's largest democracy, India. So, when it comes to travel restrictions, you know they're not messing around. And guess what? They've got some specific rules for travelers from China. We're talking negative COVID tests, quarantine requirements, the whole 9 yards. Now, India's reasoning for these restrictions is pretty straightforward. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control. But there's also another factor at play here, geopolitics. So, these travel restrictions? Well, some people see them as a way for India to put some distance between themselves and their neighbor. Chapter 5. Canada. Sorry, about the travel restrictions. Hold on to your maple syrup, folks, because we're heading north to the land of politeness and passive aggression, Canada. But even they have their limits. And when it comes to travelers from China, they're like, sorry, we're gonna need you to jump through a few hoops. We're talking negative COVID tests, quarantine requirements, the whole Canadian tuxedo. Now, Canada's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're worried about COVID-19, they're worried about new variants, and they're just trying to keep their citizens safe. But there's also another factor at play here. Diplomacy. So, Canada's trying to walk this fine line between keeping everyone happy. Chapter 6. United Kingdom. Cheerio, but mind the gap, in travel rules. Alright, lads and lasses, grab your bangers and mash, because we're crossing the pond to the United Kingdom. This land of rich history and iconic landmarks is not just about the royal family and afternoon tea, it's also about navigating some pretty specific travel rules. When it comes to travelers from China, they're like, cheerio, love, but the welcome comes with a few strings attached. But before you pop over for a cuppa, we're gonna need you to fill out some forms. Yes, the paperwork is real, and it's essential for a smooth entry. We're talking negative COVID tests, passenger locator forms, the whole British bureaucracy. These steps are crucial to ensure everyone's safety. Now, the UK's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control, ensuring that the virus doesn't spread unchecked. They're worried about new variants, which could potentially be more dangerous or spread more easily. And they're just trying to protect their citizens. The health and safety of the public is a top priority. But there's also another factor at play here, Brexit. This monumental shift has given the UK more control over its borders. See, now that the UK is no longer part of the European Union, they're free to set their own travel rules. This newfound independence means they can tailor regulations to their specific needs. They're free to set their own travel rules, and they're definitely taking advantage of that freedom. So as you plan your trip, remember to mind the gap, not just the one in the tube, but the one in travel regulations too. Chapter 7. Germany Willkommen. Oh wait, hold on a sec. Achtung everyone, we're heading to the land of beer, bratwurst, and bureaucracy, Germany. When it comes to travelers from China, they're like, Willkommen! But before you settle in for a stein of beer, we're gonna need you to follow a few rules. We're talking negative COVID tests, registration forms, the whole German efficiency machine. Now, Germany's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control, they're worried about new variants, and they're just trying to protect their citizens. But there's also another factor at play here, the European Union. Bonjour, mes amis! We're off to the land of love, croissants, and, well, let's just say a certain je ne sais quoi France. When it comes to travelers from China, they're like, bonjour, but before you start planning your romantic getaway, we're gonna need you to maintain a certain distance. We're talking negative COVID tests, health declarations, the whole French paradox. Now, France's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control, they're worried about new variants, and they're just trying to protect their citizens. But there's also another factor at play here, national pride. See, France has a long history of being a leader on the world stage, and they're not about to let a little thing like a global pandemic change that. Buongiorno, everyone. Welcome to Italy, a country known for its rich history, stunning architecture, and of course, its delicious cuisine. We're off to the land of pizza, pasta, and, well, let's just say a certain passion for life. Italy. From the bustling streets of Rome to the romantic canals of Venice, there's so much to explore. When it comes to travelers from China, they're like, ciao. But there's a catch. Before you start living la dolce vita, we're gonna need you to cover up that beautiful face. Yes, masks are still a thing here. We're talking negative COVID tests, mask mandates, the whole Italian opera. It's all part of the new normal. Now, Italy's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control. Ensuring that the virus doesn't spread uncontrollably. They're worried about new variants, which could potentially be more dangerous or spread more easily, and they're just trying to protect their citizens. Public health is a top priority, but there's also another factor at play here. Tourism. It's a double-edged sword. See, Italy relies heavily on tourism. Millions of visitors flock to its cities every year. And with these travel restrictions in place, those tourist dollars are drying up faster than a Venetian canal in August. It's a tough situation. So, Italy's trying to find a balance between protecting its citizens and keeping its economy afloat. It's a delicate dance, but one that Italy is determined to master. Annyeonghaseyo everyone, welcome to South Korea, a land where tradition meets cutting-edge technology. We're wrapping things up in the land of K-pop, kimchi, and, well, let's just say a certain technological prowess, South Korea. From the bustling streets of Seoul to the serene temples in the countryside, this country is a fascinating blend of old and new. When it comes to travelers from China, they're like, Annyeonghaseyo, but hold on, before you dive into the vibrant culture and delicious food, we're gonna need you to spend some quality time with your smartphone. Yes, that's right, your smartphone will be your best friend here. We're talking negative COVID tests, mandatory quarantine apps, and a whole lot of health protocols to follow. This is all part of the Korean tech wave, which is as impressive as it is essential in these times. Now, South Korea's reasons for these restrictions are pretty similar to the other countries we've talked about. They're trying to keep COVID-19 under control, they're worried about new variants, and they're just trying to protect their citizens. The fear of new variants spreading is a significant concern, and they are taking every precaution to prevent that. The government is doing everything it can to ensure the safety of its people, from rigorous testing to strict quarantine measures. But there's also another factor at play here, North Korea. The geopolitical tension adds another layer of complexity to the situation. See, South Korea has a, shall we say, complicated relationship with its neighbor to the north. The history between these two countries is long and fraught with tension, and they're always on high alert for any potential threats. The military presence is a constant reminder of the fragile peace. So, some people see these travel restrictions as a way for South Korea to create a buffer zone, just in case things with North Korea take a turn for the worse. In a world where health and security are paramount, South Korea is taking no chances. So while you're here, enjoy the culture, the food, and the technology. But remember to follow the rules. Stay safe and healthy. And there you have it, folks. 10 countries, 10 different approaches to travel restrictions. It's a real mixed bag out there, isn't it? One thing's for sure, though, this whole COVID thing has really thrown a wrench into the gears of global travel. Who knows what the future holds? Will these restrictions become the new normal? Will we all be flying around with vaccine passports and negative COVID tests in tow? Only time will tell. So next time you're planning a trip, do your research, pack your patience, and remember, the world is still out there waiting to be explored. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and keep on exploring.